I think we should just get started, considering we're off a little bit late and everybody probably wants to make their way to whatever's happening at 5 o'clock as a natural quitting time, perhaps. So you guys are the ghouls of Gen. You want to know about disaster and recovery. And so my name is Marian Johnson. I'm from Ministry of Awesome in Christchurch, and I'll give you some context for why I'm speaking here today. But I'd also like to introduce you to Emre, who is with Habitat in Turkey, and Hiro, who is Managing Director of Gen in Japan. And so we've kind of broken this topic up into three to give you some context into, why we're here and what story we have to tell around post-disaster resilience. And I'm going to start off with Hiro. I would ask you to take it away and let's cover off your story.
Okay. I'll try to be like in between 5 and 10 minutes. And my name is Hiro Nishiguchi, and I have actually 3 roles. Gen Japan country head, but also I'm a president and also founder of Japan Bosai platform. Bosai in Japanese means disaster risk reduction. And also I'm a professor at Sophia University, which is a Jesuit university, which has a global network in many countries. And so today, my topic is actually entrepreneurship and the climate crisis. And so, as from entrepreneur's perspective, we need to ask a good question. Okay, good question may lead to a good solution. So this is a question. How might we be able to? How might we take necessary actions? Okay, especially before and during and after disaster, for everybody in the world, in a way that we work together, so that we leave nobody behind. So that is a question we have to keep asking ourselves within this 8 billion people community globally. And with that, what is happening around the globe? Okay, let us look at what's happening right now. Basically, you don't need me to tell all the stories about what's happening, but you can. These are just some of the reminders of our disasters happening. This is not from history book. This is just the latest situations. And so what is happening right now is that I would say climate change. By the way, as of today, the United Nations is having the General Assembly. Every country's state leaders are gathering in New York and talking about many things, and we are not achieving SDGs at all. We are totally behind the schedule. These kind of discussions are happening right now as we speak. But you know what? The world climate change is already updated. Now it has become climate crisis. And unfortunately, it is happening. It is not about future. It is about right now and everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. And you are from various countries, but in your country, some things are happening already. And our friend from Turkey and New Zealand we had, and Japan, we unfortunately have many, and so this is really happening. But also we have to pay attention that actually the affected people are the most vulnerable people, the poor and the disenfranchised people are mostly affected. And again, this is everywhere, not only in say developing countries, even in the developed G7 countries, this is actually happening, unfortunately. So what are the challenges? So basically, the nature of the risk is this is a systemic risk. Okay, and also we are working together, but oftentimes they are so overlapping and also incomplete. Okay, unfortunately, you see many activities, but actually no coordination. In fact, and also in terms of budget. National budget, local government budget. Actually, the allocation is unbalanced, unfortunately. Particularly, the budget is allocated only for after, not for before. Okay, and also, this a natural disaster is not only about buildings or say road or broken houses. It is in fact about healthcare, health and well-being of people. Okay, we tend to forget about it. because all the great images, the broken buildings, so at the top to the bridges. But at the end of the day, what is the matter is healthcare, health, and the well-being of people, citizens. Then what shall we do? Basically, we have to optimize all efforts. And urgent need is actually for greater investment into infrastructure, of course, but also urban improvement. Some people call it smart cities, but it doesn't necessarily have to be smart, but it have to have a fundamental improvement for cities. And also governance, okay? It's not only about infrastructure, but governance and also leadership, okay? And also very important investment, which is totally sometimes lacking, is coordination mechanism. We have to work together. Everybody is working with goodwill, particularly after the response and recovery phases. Oftentimes, but we are not working together. Okay, silos, so many silos. But also good news is that we are now in a digitalized age, knowledge-based digitalization age. We have to really make an investment into digital, transformation. So I would say, and also, disaster do not know any country borders. Okay, they come to us without sense of any borders or boundaries, which means that we have to work. Our responses have to be, and our preparedness have to be, transnational resilience. Okay, you have to be across borders, across nations. Okay, so I think that's it. So this is my message, and I'd like to ask you to talk about your experiences. And this is a real quicker.
Thank you very much, Ira. Well, let me start while I have some slides.
Can we switch a slide, please?
We forget, dear participants, we forget that disasters happen. We forget that disasters have devastating effects on people, on economy, on the environment. We found ourselves in total oblivion. I mean, I'm not sure if it's the case for everyone in this room or every country on the world, but that was the case in Turkey when we had this earthquakes, very high magnitude earthquakes in February. You may have already forgotten. Don't worry, general public in Turkey has also forgotten. But the earthquake left behind like 50,000 people were dead. Like 40% of the building stock were damaged. So there is a problem in this cycle. Talking about the cycle, I'd like to show you two cycles. One is talking about an ideal cycle, and the other is talking about the current cycle. I borrowed some concepts from management science, continuous improvement, and another concept from financial economics, which is the mean reverting mechanism. So in the ideal cycle, when you have a disaster, then we have this emergency intervention, then we have this recovery phases, and there comes the disaster preparedness phases. And in every step of this cycle, there is learning. We draw lessons from the disasters. We use the recovery process to build back better, and in the preparedness process, we monitor and act on our failing, points in order to be better prepared for the next disaster. What happens is we are always reverting to the mean, a mean which is a very wicked balance, a mean that we do not, we forget, we ignore. So it's like when a disaster happens, we rapidly mobilize for intervention, for maybe our comforting our conscience, in denial of such a disaster could have happened, and in an anger that authorities do not do what they are supposed to do. Then there is another phase. We say that, okay, I did what I had to do. Time will cure it all. I have some other stuff to take care of. So then they are left behind. So we accept the routine and leave responsibility to FIV, and another disaster happens. So in the early years of my association, Habitat Association, there was another disaster in 1999, and we were also mobilized for that. We, started a campaign. We worked for the recovery process. We forgot. Then after 2 or 3 years, we forgot. Hopefully this time we have 3 major programs. We had 3 major programs: entrepreneurship, digitalization, and socio-economic integrations. Now we have a 4th program, which is resilience. At this time, we hope that we will not forget. So this region is not at the heart of where the startup ecosystem beats. So the region has tertiary cities, covers tertiary cities of Turkey. It has also devastating effects on the economy, like the 9% of GDP this region is covering. There was a 25% decrease in the labor force just after the earthquake, and 1 out of 3 workplaces were either shut down or halted operations. And I believe that the power of entrepreneurship is important for resilient communities, and I'd like to walk you through some promising examples about how entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurship might contribute. So one of the best practices is the e-commerce sector, where they have mobilized quickly. Turkey is the penetration of e-commerce is very high. Like half of the population has purchased something in the last 3 months. It's a very big penetration. It accounts for 5% of the GDP, and it's growing. So there are technology-driven companies in the e-commerce business. More or less 10 or 15 years ago, they were, newly initiated startups, but they are still technology-driven, and they adapted to the situation, and they have created a system through the market by, making the market work. Volunteer sellers with discounted prices. They put the items on their marketplaces, the items that were identified by the emergency administration, and the purchasers, the customers, they purchase those items, and all through the capacity, like logistics capacity of e-commerce companies, they have provided these items to the earthquake region. Only in the 3rd day, there were a lot of items listed on the marketplace and delivered to the warehouses established in the earthquake region. And they have adapted everything in 3 days to a week. And after 4 weeks, there were 4 million items, and with costing millions of dollars, delivered to the earthquake. This was a very good example. And there are also other examples where, platform technologies, where you match the need with those interested to give, worked very nicely after the earthquake. It's like some examples connecting large-scale enterprises to outsource from the enterprises in the region, like around 1,000 large companies all around Turkey. They have sourced some of their intermediary products from the entrepreneurs of the earthquake region. What else? There are some social enterprises, very nice initiatives like connecting local farmers to the market, connecting local producers and surplus food for the kitchens established in the shelters. Vacant houses were matched with those who are in urgent need of shelters. So these are all happened through the power of digital technologies and by the help of startups. Habitat also involved and contributed to some of these efforts. For example, there is a huge pile of second-hand clothes piled up in the earthquake region because everyone donated, and they turned out to be a big, garbage. Now we brought together several startups. One is working around circular economy and recycling technologies. Another is providing a marketplace, and we brought them together. And a cooperative, a women cooperative, is producing those, recycled clothes, and they are selling it through the markets, not donating, but selling it to the market. There are also some other use cases of either startups of innovation-driven companies that we were part of. For example, there was a startup that we know, and after a few days of the earthquake, like the second day, as far as I remember, that startup, they went to the region. They are specialized in aerial insight solutions, and they scanned the area, and they provided those digital maps to the power company, energy company of the region, in order to repair the system. And this was a use case for their new products. And there was another global company, another startup, but investing recently in sustainability solutions. They came there through our involvement, and they have installed their water treatment systems in rural villages which cannot reach to clean water systems. Lastly, we are now establishing co-working spaces, or we can call them community centers, by Habitat. We are also operating, we are now establishing 4 in the earthquake region. We are already operating 8 of them in other parts of Turkey. So these are places these are some spaces. We are trying to turn them into places in order to people to come together, work, and learn from each other. We are also providing content to these community centers, content that we build together with other leading companies and entrepreneur ecosystem partners. And we team up with local stakeholders to run these community centers. There are some key takeaways that we learned from the disaster, the recent disaster. So we are still in the process of meeting the primary needs, like for those who are familiar to the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So it starts from your physical needs. So shelter, food is physical needs, and those needs are still the needs of the earthquake zone. Like 3 million people are still living in either makeshift shelters or containers, freight containers in the city. Another 3 million already became refugees. They left for other cities. So the primary needs are still trying to be met. But still, entrepreneurship has a room, because now it's kind of a restart button, and we can introduce the idea of entrepreneurship, the idea of entrepreneurial impact, the idea of sustainable development, and many things that the development area have been introduced to. We need in these areas some smart incentives from the government for entrepreneurs to build back better, like encouraging competitive sectors with high value-added potentials. And some topics we believe could be incentivized through government support for startups and investors, such as disaster management. There should be something like disaster tech, emergency intervention, disaster preparedness, and like recycling or construction technologies, and establishing impact investing schemes is quite important. This is quite recent in Turkey. It's not a well-established ecosystem, but we see that it's working. Social enterprises, it's working. So we need all this in order to build back better. And after finalizing here, so I'd like to pass to Marianne, because they have built back better, and there is a very important experience that they have in Christchurch.
Thank you. Thanks, Enrique. Could you pop my slides up, please? Can I borrow that up? Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so the story that I'm going to tell about the Christchurch earthquake is a really obviously, we lost 185 lives, so this was not a party. I'm not telling a story of how this was so wonderful for the city, but at the end of the day, the city is unrecognizable 12 years later. And I guess I really want that to be like a point of hope for any other cities that go through this process. And there's no doubt from, what Hiro was referring to in the beginning that, so many of our countries, so many of our cities are going through these cataclysmic processes. And we're going to have to find some sort of better system of rebuilding and going through these processes, because it seems like this is going to be something that's quite recurring. But in any case, in Christchurch, essentially, this is the city on the 22nd of February in 2011. I'd been in New Zealand for 2 years. I'd met my very good-looking Kiwi husband in a bar in London, and I'd moved to Christchurch. I had a tiny wee baby and a 6-year-old son. I had no idea where they were on the day, how they were, what was going on. I was at the office. There was liquefaction everywhere. I had to run home. I took off my heels about, 100 meters in, threw them away, and ran the rest of the way, a solid sort of 4 or 5K, people crying everywhere. You can imagine if you've ever been in a scenario like that. And essentially what happened was the entire center of the city fell down. And if it didn't fall down on the day, it fell down in the aftershocks. If it didn't fall down in the aftershocks, they had to be taken down. And so if you lived in Christchurch, you lived in a donut. So everyone lived in the outside. There was a hole in the middle. No one went in. You couldn't even go get your keys or whatever you might have left in your office or your car or whatever. And so the immediate aftermath was obviously emergency services, making sure that people were safe, finding your family, finding your friends, reconnecting, getting water, making sure that, distributing toilets, all that sort of stuff. But essentially what happened was the city before, when I first moved there, I had said to my husband, I'll give this 3 years, right? So I was 2 years in and I'm thinking 1 more year and then we're out of here. It's too small. There's not a whole lot going on. There's no real industry that is relevant for someone in my background. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the center of a city that's going through the fastest transition, where the whole strategy and the whole vision for the city ended up focusing on innovation. And every single city in the world right now wants to be a city of innovation. Every single city in the world wants to be the city of startups. And some will transition, some won't. But one of the things that really worked in Christchurch was that our Economic Development Agency was very, very clear with their strategy. They said, we are going to come up with 3 supernodes. Those supernodes are future food and fiber. That's supernode 1. Supernode 2 is aerospace and future transport, which at the time, to me, I thought that was quite funny because there was no aerospace. I didn't understand where they came up with that. I thought they might have spun a wheel of sectors and they wound up with aerospace. But it turns out that Christchurch has a straight trajectory into polar orbit. Turns out that we have missions to Mars with the extreme environments of Antarctica. Turns out that there was the basis for this already through the universities. It's just that it didn't happen in Christchurch. Christchurch, it happened elsewhere. So people would come out of that with this excellence in these sectors, and they would go to other countries and develop this innovation elsewhere, not in Christchurch. So the third supernode was health tech and med tech, and then underpinning all of that was essentially advanced tech. So 12 years later, we are now the fastest growing startup city in the world as of, as of 2023. That's according to Startup Blink. That doesn't mean we are the startup city, we're just the fastest growing. So it's a nice way to put it, but it really does say that we made incredible strides in a really short amount of time. And in Ministry of Awesome, which is the organization that I lead, I'm the chief executive at Ministry of Awesome, we had a really large part to play in the before and in the after. It certainly isn't because of us, but we were the group that led what eventually became a think tank. So after the emergency piece happened, after the practicalities of how do you get your food, your water, et cetera, took place, there was so much red tape, there was such a stall, no one could move forward. You didn't know whether you were going to stay, whether you were going to go. We lost a lot of talent, but at the same time, we gained 70,000 workers from the rest of the world who came for the rebuild. And what our economic development agency used to say, and it's really quite apt, is that anybody who was risk averse took off, and everyone in the world who was looking for something new and cool to do came in. And so we had a sudden shift of what the culture of the city was. It used to be called the Garden City, which to me was a real snooze at the time because I'm not into gardens, and it made me think of, it just wasn't that interesting to me. But now it really and truly is this city of startups, this city of innovation. So the role that Awesome HQ played was we created essentially a think tank, and you didn't have to be invited to it. Anybody could come. If you were sick of dealing with your red tape, if you had a great idea, if you wanted to make something happen, if you had an entrepreneurial mindset and you weren't going to accept what was happening, but you wanted to do something else, that's exactly the people who turned up at Awesome HQ. And so we would have a weekly meetup called Coffee and Jam. It was totally free. It literally just served coffee and pieces of toast with jam and hummus. And there would be 100, 150 people. Sometimes we had politicians, sometimes we had mayors, sometimes we had students, sometimes we had retired people. Most of the time we had all of them in the room, lots of tech people, lots of rebuild type people. And because of all of this, the city continued to push the boundaries, becoming an interesting place to be. So all the things that came out of it, the Restart Mall, which was the container malls, the bicycle cinema, those quirky and interesting things that made Christchurch an interesting place to be when there really wasn't a city, all came out of Ministry of Awesome, as did the building of those strategies around the supernodes. So having that vision for where is the city going to be, it's not going to be anything like it was, it's going to be something brand new. We're going to start afresh. We don't have to deal with anything else. We've got a blank canvas. Actually ended up being something quite incredible and powerful for everyone in the city. So, so Ministry of Awesome started there. We're now here. We're on the ground floor of this building. We basically did a partnership with a tertiary organization that have 7,000 students. The students work alongside the 60 startups every year who go through the incubator. We run 2 accelerators. One is a Women Founders Accelerator. Another one's an Energy Accelerator. And essentially, over the last, since May 2019, we deal with companies only from MVP to pre-seed, and in that space, the companies that we've worked with have raised just under 90 million and added 285 full-time jobs to the local economy. And those sectors are all sectors. So we're dealing with aerospace, we're dealing with ag tech, we're dealing with anything that you can think of is coming in and out of the sector that is really alive now in Christchurch. So I guess the long and the short of it is that, you know how after World War I and all the battlefields of World War II, the poppies grew in those old battlefields. So to some extent, using the same analogy, after the devastation of our earthquakes, because of ordinary entrepreneurially minded citizens who just didn't ask for permission and just laid out and said, this is what we're going to do, and this is where we're going to go, and this is what we're going to make. I think in the example of Christchurch, government went along with it. It didn't go the other way. We didn't wait for them to come and fix it. We fixed it ourselves, or anyway, started the process and made a lot of noise and dragged them along. And then this is where we end up, which is really kind of awesome. So that's it. That's my story.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Marian, thank you very much. I actually, you know what? I think the fundamental nature of entrepreneurship is to identify the gap between today and desired future, and then start working on to fill the gap. Yeah. And it's not about making money. It's not about, you know, money is good, by the way, but a real challenge, real nature of the entrepreneurship, particularly in this crisis, you know, climate crisis and natural hazard, is really to identify the future status where we want to be, then start working on it. And I think with that, what you did, the Christchurch, you did amazing, because you wanted to transform the city into a totally different stage. And also by doing so, you attracted many talents who are maybe not so interested in the previous garden city at all. So I think this transformation is great. By the way, you know, right after your Christchurch, you know, disaster, unfortunately, and tragedy, I have to say, in Japan, 2 weeks later, we had a very major earthquake hit, the worst one in the history of a country and in the region. And so basically a huge tsunami and also nuclear plant explosion and all the kinds of things happened. That happened in the city of Sendai, okay? And Sendai was also actually a very sleepy place, okay? But they also transformed their city into like a core city for disaster risk reduction research and activities. So the Tohoku University, which is a core university in the Sendai city, is literally working around the world to attract many academics and practitioners to become the center of disaster risk reduction practicing academics. And they even invited United Nations back in 2015, 4 years later, after the tragedy, to have an international UN meeting to talk about, say, you know, renew the previous Hyogo framework to come up with a Sendai framework, which is part of the SDGs as well. This is really to emphasize the importance of actually investment before the hazard, natural hazards, by anticipating the future. Because we want to create a better future. We want to create a society in which nobody will be hurt, hopefully. Then by doing so, you have to actually make more investment beforehand, so that we will work less. Hopefully, we don't have to work less. We will work less to respond and recover. So that is a kind of fundamental, I think, essence. I mean, at least from Japan's lesson, because we are very good at responding. We are good at recovering, because you know, we are very particular people. We are very precise. We like to be very, you know, concise, precise, and punctual. Everything is very precise. However, what we do very well, in fact, particularly in this area, to prepare, to make more investment beforehand. And by doing so, and we believe that we can create a better society, and hopefully, you know, we should work together. Just like I said, transnational. You know, it has to be cross-border. You know, over to both of you.
Yeah. I think, you know, there are variations among countries in drafting strategies and in implementing them. So I think in neither of those two categories, Turkey excels. But we might be good in managing uncertainties. And managing uncertainties is an you know, asset we were talking about, you know, such values. That could be among such values, and it's very much associated with entrepreneurial thinking, because It's about, you know, managing uncertainties and chaos and everything, and failures and come back from failures. So I think if we can, you know, work more on these ideas around the entrepreneurship to be embedded in coming back, so that might, you know, somehow contribute, although to a small extent, for the development of the earthquake affected region in Turkey. Shall we? Maybe if they have, our audience have any questions, because we are good at, you know, timing.
Yeah. Do you need a microphone?
It's okay. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, thank you. That was really interesting and very inspiring to hear all three of you kind of share your experiences of these different disasters. I think as time goes on with climate change, unfortunately, we'll see more and more of this. I work for an organisation, as everyone knows, called Business International. We're a network of member organisations around the world that support young entrepreneurs. And I guess my question is, when you look at huge kind of existential challenges like climate change that require huge funds and joined up efforts and a lot of government kind of input, do you see a role for young kind of early stage entrepreneurs in being able to contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation? And if so, do you have any kind of examples to share? Absolutely. I mean, who is the one person that you think of when you think about climate change and you think about taking a stand? Right, Greta. Right. We all know it. We all are, you know, fundamentally disturbed, upset, would like to do something about it, but who actually galvanized movement all around the world? Greta. And when we think about the entrepreneurs who are working in the space, particularly around carbon zero stuff, carbon zero innovation in New Zealand, and also around things like tracking and measuring and getting companies to take responsibility for their outputs and so on. They're generally, and this is a massive generalization, those founders would be around, you know, somewhere between 25 to 40 years old, and they're working in all of those different spaces. They have absolutely a huge part to play, and I think that quite clearly that demographic is far easier to galvanize than those who seem to be accepting that this is an inevitability. Yeah.
Can I respond to you? Maybe can I add one? Yeah, actually, you know, my organization, Japan Both Side Platform (JBP), is a membership organization. We have about 100 private sector companies who companies, and their intent is actually to make our technologies and know-how available to the international community. The organization is not necessarily for the domestic market, for the entire international market, and we do have various startup companies already. And generally speaking, they are from, say, university research-based startups, because they do have, they have a better, say, sensor ideas. They have a better, analytical ideas, and so they are trying to commercialize the ideas. And with that, since we do work with the United Nations, we do work with various government agencies, we work with the World Bank, so we work. Well, so they leverage our network to basically, commercialize their, ideas. So in that sense, yes, of course, there are so many stages for startups, but also probably startups alone may be a little bit, I would say, lonely. So we have to work together as a platform. I think that is what we do with them. Okay, sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question maybe built on what I was bringing up. So as a startup, we have a product that we think can really be helpful in disaster relief. But we also have, as a startup, to figure out how to get funding to monetize and return to investors. So trying to go down those paths at the same time is a challenge. We get pushed back more on the hard side versus the finance side for the business. So it's been hard. So we're a U.S.-based company. It's been hard for us to find, we're in the Midwest, it's been hard for us to find the right investors that get that balance and get that forward thinking of how this product can be a game changer for disaster relief, because they're more concerned about that first return as investors for a startup. So I'm wondering if you have advice in maybe in what you've done in Christchurch, maybe there's a different way you're approaching that now with funding startups.
I mean, I'm surprised but not surprised if you're having trouble pushing those, first few doors open. I mean, I'm assuming that your first customer is going to be government, regional government, because I'm not sure what your product is.
So we can keep things cold for 21 days with no power, no electricity, at whatever temperature you need it to be at. So it's a new category for cold chain logistics.
Right.
We're focused on pharma and biologics as the entry point. So we did this with aerospace engineers at Rolls-Royce during COVID, specifically to move 2 doses of vaccines anywhere in the community.
Yeah.
So the pressure there is to go into that pharmaceutical high end to get the return for the initial investment, where we see the breadth of what this could do in the areas where there's no electricity or disaster relief to move whatever you need in there, whatever temperature you need to keep it up for 21 to 28 days.
I mean, this, nothing to do with the, this particular panel, but I mean, I would always say that if you're looking at a government target customer, that's always going to be a longer cycle than if you're looking at a customer that actually has a product that would spoil. If you're looking at B2B, that's so much easier. And your investors are going to be a little bit more of a crowded group, but I'm coming off no knowledge or anything like that. I think that, we are at 10 after 5. It's the end of probably a very, very long day for all of you guys. I think it's really interesting that it's just the three of us up here presenting on disaster relief when, we all went through a disaster together as a world not that long ago. And we all have some lessons, that we've learned from our own geographies and our own experiences and how we had to handle everything. And these are things that seem to be coming at us with ever greater frequency, and the only thing that I think all of us would agree on is that it's the entrepreneurs and the people with entrepreneurial mindset. It's those people who are the first to act, who are the first to, rebuild, create a vision, and find a way through, right? That's what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and so therefore they're predisposed to do that anyway. So just pat yourself on the back if you're involved in the industry, and I guess everyone will come to us when it happens to us. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys.
Okay, thank you.